So, Chris, we're chatting about Ruth this week. We've got the Bible plan from Ruth. Lots of things to talk about. I'm going to let you start out with your reflections. What were you thinking?
Man, the first thing I think about Ruth is I know I've done um, some kinds of Bible studies about Ruth in the past, but it's always like I always forget what the story is about. So it's somewhere I need to spend a little more time. And so it's been a good refresher because I always get into it and I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember. This is cool. And there's so many like really on point parts of this story.
Hmm.
Um, one, it's really succinct. It's not a real long book of the
Yeah.
Bible, um, and it covers like it covers good character, it covers love, it covers in a way like adoption kind of behavior,
Yeah.
being grafted into a family. It covers redemption. It covers all those things just in real, brief terms in one short story. Um, and one of the things that stands out to me is how I don't want to use words that would diminish the story at all. It's
Hmm.
almost like this story is charming in a way. And what I mean by that is it's like everybody in the story is at their best and everybody has good character. And there's, not a bunch of evil going on and there's not a bunch of people how many stories in the Bible have people who are just sour and they'd be annoying to have to deal with, or there's a dichotomy between, like the Cain and Abel
Hmm.
or whatever, um, but here you've got, Naomi, who's like awesome mother-in-law person and takes in Ruth, and you've got Ruth who's like diligent and hardworking and honoring to the people, that she's asking, hey, will you take me in? You've got Boaz, who probably is one of the most honorable guys you'll see in the whole Bible. Um, from the way that he looks after Ruth in the beginning to the way that he takes her in, marries her, and recognizes the importance of his role in that whole story.
Hmm.
It's pretty again, it's pretty succinct and pretty intensely good, and kind of a really pretty picture of how Jesus deals with us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I'm kind of visualizing it, I guess, as you're talking about this pretty picture. I'm kind of thinking about the community and the way that the
Yeah.
community is kind of structured or expected to act, I guess. And
Hmm.
so I've got a bunch of different thoughts. So keep me, wrap me in, pull me back if you need to. But
Sure.
the the two things that really stand out to me about the plan of the community is that first, like you said, Ruth and Naomi, they kind of become family, right? And their
Right.
mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, so they are. I mean, they are family, but not all those relationships develop that strongly. You know what
Right.
I mean? Orpah obviously had a good relationship too, but she left, right? I mean, she had a good relationship, but she left, and from what
Right.
we're told, but those two become like family, and Ruth makes the comments of your God will be my God, your people my people, and I think this is one thing that we could potentially chat about and reflect on is I think about the depth of a relationship within the church and how quality that relationship can be and
Hmm.
often how shallow it stays, right? and
Yeah,
and I,
that's challenging right now, isn't it?
yeah.
I mean that it wouldn't surprise me. Like I get provoked by that. I'm like, oh man,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
where am I doing that? Right.
And I was talking to, I forget who I was talking to just the other day or something, but I was talking to somebody. I was making some phone calls and I was talking to somebody about being connected or not feeling connected, and
Hmm.
I just kind of was reflecting on, man, I've been in St. Louis for 7 years or so, and I feel like I've finally, I mean, I developed some friends pretty quickly, but to
Yeah.
have like decently deep friendships that might involve, confessing and honesty and repentance and stuff like that, it just took.
It takes time.
It takes time, but
It takes
I
time.
think, I guess I think sometimes it takes a little too much work and a little too much effort. Um, when compared to the grace and the love that is within the community. And so I think
Mhm.
sometimes there's a little work to commit, or to be vulnerable, or to show someone that you're a safe place to be vulnerable, which
Right.
usually means being vulnerable yourself first.
Yeah.
And so I just think about that relationship that those two had together and how they got there. And then, yeah, the second thing that I reflect on is how God created this system and these rules to take care of orphans, widows, and those people who weren't, and foreigners, right? People who
Right.
who weren't going to be necessarily, they weren't going to naturally have things,
Right.
right? Like a foreigner probably isn't coming in with a bunch of land and a bunch of property and all that stuff, and other people weren't necessarily even able to have it. So God implemented rules and structures and systems to make sure that those people were taken care of.
Right.
And so that really stands out to me too, how God kind of works through us to take care of people. And he expects it.
I mean, boy, we could dwell there for a while
I
because
threw a lot at you.
no, no, no. Well, so there's two things that are on my mind, but I'm gonna go right to where that was for a second. Um, because I was talking to my children about this actually today too. Um, there was a quote that somebody in the government, I'm sure, or somebody who's, politically minded, said that they grabbed and were wanting to talk about. And the quote is, being a billionaire is unconscionable,
Mm.
right? Not a millionaire, but a billionaire. And the point that the kids were grabbing onto is, if you have that much, for what, right?
Mm.
Why? And I said, well, one, let's don't just throw rocks at people because they've been blessed. But two, let's think about that. And as we think about it scripturally, I mean, we go to Revelation 2 and we see Jesus is addressing the Laodicean church, not just the Laodicean community, but the Laodicean church. And he says, this I have against you. You've got widows and orphans among you, and you haven't taken care of any of them,
Mm.
right? So, and it makes sense then in
Laodicean, right?
Laodicea. Yeah.
Okay, I got confused for a second. I was like, the Loud Odyssean Church. I haven't heard of that one before.
No,
Okay.
Laodicean. Yeah. But was I saying it funny?
No, I probably was hearing it funny. Keep going. Keep going.
And so, yeah, but so there he is. I mean, and that really, if you look scripturally, that also was the primary sin of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Hmm. I didn't know it.
Yeah, so go back in the New Testament and see where it's written about the sin of Sodom isn't a sexual sin as we presume and we've named things after, but instead it's they had plenty and they didn't look after people. They became
So
selfish.
this hits me. This hits. I think based on where you're going, this is
Mm-hmm.
kind of what I was reflecting on. But like we said, we try and take things down to down from up in this theoretical kind of area to more practical. And I think one of the challenges is that, I mean, I could look at a billionaire and be like, man, a billionaire should do a lot of stuff with his or her money, right?
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and then
easy
I
to judge from way far away though.
bingo, because I mean, in the same way that Boaz, right, had the opportunity and the responsibility to take care of Ruth as the kinsman redeemer, right?
Right?
I have responsibilities to take care of my neighbors or family members or that kind of stuff. And maybe it's with money. I mean, it's entirely possible that it involves, financially supporting people, or it's possible that it means, buying a gift card for somebody, who's about to have a kid so that they, can can not worry about meals or making meals for somebody who yada yada.
Yeah.
Or it could mean calling some family members or some neighbors or some friends who I think aren't doing well and using my time to just show them their value, right? But I think a lot
See
of
that?
times,
Oh man, that you just hit it there. And I don't want to interrupt you if you had a little more
go ahead.
to go, but show somebody their value. Okay, let's unpack that for a second because I've had this conversation at home too. People are all valuable. We're equally valuable to God.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we're valuable is because we're all made in His image, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we carry the same honor that He bestowed on us, each one of us.
Right.
Therefore, I mean, that's why He can value each one of us, no matter what we've done, no matter how we behave. He values and loves each one of us, right?
Right.
So if God's doing that, then we need to be doing that.
So that becomes I think my like big reflection is, we look at Boaz as really honorable for let's say living up to his responsibility with Ruth and maybe more specifically Naomi, right? Because it was his responsibility to take care of Naomi, right? And to
Mm-hmm.
redeem that family and to redeem that land and all that. Um, and so thinking about, okay, what are the things that God is relying? I'll say relying, but that's probably not the best word because he doesn't need me. But what are the things that he's giving me the opportunity to
Right.
to do for the people around me, and who has he put around me to do that for? Does that make sense? So
Right.
how do I identify the people in my life who are like the Naomi or the Ruth to me?
Right.
Right? And again, I'm thinking immediately, right? Immediate family members, wife, daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also thinking Webster Gardens Church, because obviously he's called me to that church. But I mean, I've got brothers who don't believe in God, right? How am I
I mean, yeah,
continuing to
it's
love them and
so,
show them their value? I've got neighbors who God has clearly put close to me. How do I show them their value?
and I think we've got to be careful that we don't just splatter paint this, um, all these people, like, for example, um, is it enough if we throw a baby shower for somebody?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a special occasion, we're going to do something that's going to honor them. Is that enough?
Mm-hmm.
Or, are there more steps that we need to take in that kind of scenario? You know what I mean? Like in America, I think we're really glad to throw a party for somebody on a special occasion. And apart from that, we don't show extravagant value on people, generically speaking, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, generally speaking. So yeah, we're not in the business of doing that all the time. We're in the business of kind of getting through life somehow ourselves.
Yeah. That's a good
Oh
point.
yeah, it's Zach's birthday, so I'm gonna do something extravagant there. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's like we're forgetful about the way we're supposed to behave,
Right. And I
right?
think I think sometimes it's because like we make ourselves too busy, right? And so,
Oh, for
if
sure.
I'm trying to, this is actually something that I've been trying to reflect on based on our last Bible story here, and we got maybe about a minute left here.
Sure.
Um, but when we were reading Joshua, I think it's really easy to start thinking that I'm the hero and I have to save hundreds and hundreds of people. I got to save
Right.
my neighbors and my family members and my immediate family and my extended family. I've got to save my church. I got to save my community. I got to save, and I think to start realizing and just starting to be aware. Okay, I want to do that as well as I can. And I want to reflect on who the people God is putting around my life. And I want to spend quality time with them and have quality relationships with them. But it's not really up to me, right? I'm not going
It's
to
not.
beat myself up. I'm not going to. The beauty of this is that I get to go to them and talk to them about how I've failed them, how I've let them down, how I'm a sinner, and how great Jesus is for forgiving me and for loving
Mhm.
them too, right?
So look, I mean, yeah, let's digest it a little bit then. Real, and we got 15 seconds here, and this is a two for one right here. In the story of Ruth, Ruth essentially shows up as the person that is obvious needs the covering, right? Um, she needs to be grafted into this family. She needs to be accepted.
Hmm.
I mean, she's essentially, if you go back to the disciples, when Jesus is talking to them and they're like, where else would we go?
Right.
Right? She's in that position. Where else would I go? Naomi, I'm going with you because where else would I go?
Hmm.
Well, Naomi and Boaz ultimately are like, you know what? Clearly, this person is in our life and we're going to look after her. So they weren't like, oh, who are the 9 people around me that I got to. It was Ruth and she landed in their laps. And they're like, clearly, this is something God wants us to do. So
Yeah.
I'm going to say then, here's the twofer. If you're, when we break out into groups, if you're looking for something to discuss a little bit, think about the Ruth in your life. If you're Naomi or if you're Boaz, think about the Ruth in your life. Who's the person that it's almost like painfully obvious that the Lord's saying, maybe why don't you help this person?
Can I add to that? Just, and then, and we're wrapping here. Is also, I'd encourage you to reflect maybe and share, when you've been the Ruth,
Ooh, that's a good one.
right, and when God has provided. Because I can think of a dozen, many times where God has used other people where I've been the Ruth, and it's been fantastic.
No
And
doubt.
and it goes back and forth. It still happens. So, well, cool. Thank you, Chris.
Glad to talk about Jesus.
Always, man. Okay, thanks.